Oh, sorry. Hey, welcome back to the Weekly Grind for DLF DynastyLeagueFootball.com. I think that's the website I work for. Sorry about my hair. I know it's not the first thing on your mind, but it's on my mind. I even tried to wear a hat to use it like a comb, and that didn't work out. Anyway, the idea of this stream is we do a Dynasty's perspective on weekly events. So really thinking about this off season based on what's going on week to week. So it's more longer term, but we also just tend to end up answering any questions you happen to have from a Dynasty perspective, from trades to value to is Jamar Chase the best ever now, and that kind of thing. This week, Dynasty Outhouse is not going to be able to make it, so we got a John Hogue. We got a John Hogue feature this week. Pretty excited about it. We're going to run through the things that we think are happening right now, which have an effect long-term in Dynasty. And might change or alter the way we're seeing players this offseason so far through 4 weeks of the 2021 season. So, yeah, hit us up with any questions you might have. And we're just going to get to talk about Dynasty on a weekly basis, if that's cool with you. Hey, my name's PA. Howdy. This is John Hogue at Superflex Dude. Is it at Superflex Dude? Because every time I try and find you on Twitter, I'm like, I'm sure there's an FF in there somewhere. Right? No underscores, just Superflex Dude. All right.
Do you just have me muted or something?
Yeah, you're very difficult to find in the ban list. Anyway, we were talking about it just before I was late to start the show because we were talking about it. But I think one of the things going on this year is that running back value is just falling and falling. And it's not necessarily because of injuries. It's just because of the cycle of good running back production, as happens, is slowly dwindling. The last boom of youthful production is finally dying out. The 2021 running backs are injured or they're struggling on a terrible team like DeAndre Swift. And we really hoped, or many people really hoped, that would roll over the running back revolution. And there has never been a running back revolution. It's just a couple years, and then we get a downtime, and then a couple years. It's something that cycles. And long-term effect of that's going to be probably the last 2 years, top 24 running backs. Like 24 running backs were being drafted at the same pace as top 12 wide receivers over the last 2 years per Dynasty League Football ADP, which means that in the exact same round, the 12th wide receiver off the board leaves, especially in Superflex, the top 20, the 24th running back being drafted is drafted in that same round. I think we see a little bit of switch this offseason where, top 12 wide receivers are definitely being drafted before the top 24th running back. And we're going to see a fall in ADP. What do you think about that? Am I off? Am I wrong?
No, not at all. I can't help but wonder, though, if maybe this is it's really just a market correction that needed to happen. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know that it should necessarily be just an indictment on the running back position. I think that I think our process has been off for a while, if I'm being honest.
It has been off for a while, but also the reason for it we have had that cycle of Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, and Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, who have been potential difference makers every year, and so we overcorrected everyone below them because we're desperate to such running back. But it's also, again, something that happens in cycles. When we get those running backs, everyone gets really excited for who might be the James White or the Austin Eckler that one year. And we just boost our ADP too far. So it's a market correction, but also it's like an end of an era. It's like how quarterback ADP in Superflex was elevating because everyone thought everyone was going to be Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes. And instead, you just get more Baker Mayfields. You get more Baker Mayfields. Okay, most of them are Baker Mayfield.
Which is still important, by the way.
Yeah, still important. But most of them are Zach Wilson. I mean, he's having a hell of a time entering the NFL. But I mean, he's doing better than most people would. That's mostly what you get. Very few. I haven't said that. Is there any? I mean, Kyler Murray is obviously the latest one. Trevor Lawrence is struggling, but he's still a great and good prospect. Justin Fields, we're going to see him for the first time as a starter, apparently, this week. And I still have a lot of hope for him. It's just, I think we elevate the potential upside based on having seen that upside recently from a certain position. We've done it from running back, like I say, in cycles. and quarterbacks as well. But we are seeing a new crop of running backs die out, as it were, and a new crop of quarterbacks take over. Ben Roethlisberger is worse than a jugs machine at this time.
He's awful. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the main thing that's going on. It kind of links up to most of the things I'm seeing in 2021 and how it might affect this offseason. Connor's already in the chat trying to trigger me on Mike Davis. Appreciate it. Yeah, Mike Davis is Atlanta's running back, Ron. I don't know what you want from me. He's getting all the running back touches. He has an immense amount of that offensive share. I mean, it's just the team sucks, and Cordero Patterson is stealing all the touchdowns. That's why the same thing with Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley. Like, they don't suck now because Cordero Patterson's catching 3 receiving touchdowns every freaking game, it feels like.
Yeah, and yeah, they're just not capable of, of creating a positive game script for Mike Davis. The defense is bad, the offensive line is bad. It's just like there's nothing there to really support Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, Kyle Pitts, Kevin, all of them are going to have a game sooner rather than later, because despite Cordero Patterson, all of them are getting really good volume, like top 12, top 15 volume at their position. And when there is a good game, or when they just get actually catch that touchdown, they're going to have good games, and everyone's going to be like, told you so. I think the expectation for the season long should definitely decrease. Like, Calvin Ridley being the wide receiver 1 isn't going to happen at this point, but he's going to have better games than he's having so far.
Yeah. And Kyle Pitts it's going to be very spotty for him. But to me, Kyle Pitts is like, this is a time to buy, because again, we just had this flawed process in so many different ways, and it gets corrected, in season, and it's just which is flawed in and of itself, that we wait until there's actual football going on to go through and correct all our processes. But I think that a lot of people are going to be off of Kyle Pitts, and we should have known all along, and I think that you and I both were saying all off season, rookie tight ends don't do it. They don't do it in year 1. So, stop trading away Travis Kelce to get Kyle Pitts.
I'll do you one better. Kyle Pitts kind of is doing it in year 1. Like, that's the weird thing. He's getting the volume. I mean, you don't see Albert O out here. He's also still a good tight end prospect with 11% of the team's expected points, or finishing in the top 12, 25% of games. I mean, this is what a great tight end rookie season looks like. Could you say all that again at like around 10 o'clock when Bob Gilchrist and John Hogue, not John Hogue, John Bosch, the other John that doesn't like me.
That's exactly what I thought.
They need to hear it from someone else. Like, because I was promised like his value could not fall. It was locked in. And I think it's probably easier to trade for Kyle Pitts right now than it was when people were turning down Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey this offseason. I think it's probably a little easier right now. Apart from the fact that I think John and Bob roster him in every league. So probably not in that case.
Yeah, they made a point of it. Yeah. And the problem is, as soon as he has that monster game, he's going to have that at some point this season, probably just 1 or 2 of them. But when that happens, I mean, that's when they make their victory happen.
Right. And yeah, like I said,
and there goes the bye window. Yeah.
They're playing the Jets this week. It's not been a great defense against the passing game. It's allowing a lot more volume, but decreasing. It looks like they're decreasing. I'm trying to quickly look at my strength of schedule here. Efficiency has been slightly average against them. More volume, same efficiency. Actually, yeah, it's fine. It's fine as a matchup. They're ranked 22nd and 23rd overall as a passing, as a defense. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, just trying to answer Connor there. Yeah, this could be the week. I mean, who can't win against the Jets? People forget that the problem with Adam Gase isn't just that he sucks and he shouldn't get jobs. And not that I want him not to get jobs, to be fair. It's just fun to say. It's that the effect of Adam Gase lasts years. How long did it take Ryan Tannehill to not only find a team, but then get a job and then be good? There's a lingering Adam Gase effect. That's my explanation for what's going on with the Jets right now.
A hangover.
They're going to be all right overall, but they got to go through counseling. They They call it Adam Gase counseling.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see. So far, the Jets have only had one top 12 week. Is that right? At the running back position. Oh no, that was just last week. 3 running backs has gone off for top 12 weeks against them this season. No wide receivers or tight ends. So it's Mike Davis week, I guess. What do we take away there? That actually ticks off the very first thing I have on my list, which is Cordero Patterson. But just to ask you more broadly, like that's a major thing going on right now. And per Ryan McDowell, he just put out a tweet looking at trades that have happened most recently on the DLF Trade Finder app. And he's pretty much being traded for a second. If you've got him on your roster, you trade him away for a second.
I'm curious what you think, but I wouldn't. I mean, I get it that there's regression coming. I get it that this is not sustainable. 3 touchdowns in a game, that's definitely not going to happen. Right. Probably again, much less every week. But like, I don't know why the overall production couldn't continue. Like, I get and we talked about this off air. I mean, he's not on the field a lot. That's kind of the first step towards fantasy production is get your ass on the field. It starts there, but and he's lining up as a running back, but not getting running back touches all that much. They do use him. They do bring him in kind of down around the goal line. For some reason, he ends up
touchdowns, right? I mean, different touches have different value. I think that's like someone asked me about Jonathan Taylor as well, because he's got like a 50% snap share right now. Cordero Patterson is on like 37. I think we get in our heads too much like snaps and routes like are the real truth, and that's what the smart people use. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's touches. If they're touching, if you're only on the team on the field 37% of the time, but you get the ball every time in the 20, it doesn't matter. Right. That's probably they're probably gonna keep doing that when they're in the red zone. So I think his production, like you say, it's not going to be last week every week, but he's going to be a very viable start if he's listed as running back or wide receiver on your site of choice. That affects start-sit decisions. If he's a tough flex decision every week, I trade him away. But if my team is competitive, like I know I'm going to the playoffs, I don't see a reason to trade him away. If there's any uncertainty, like most of my teams this year, like 2-2 or 3-1, I'll trade Cordero Patterson for a second. I think that's a fair offer, or a second and 2/3, I think was one of the trades. So maybe push it a little bit, because I don't think he has any value this offseason. I don't think he has this many great games next year. And maybe even, next week when Mike Davis finally scores a touchdown. That changes it. But I'd be fine trading him away, but I don't feel a great compulsion to. Like, if my team's competitive, it's fine. I'll keep him on there in case someone else gets injured, or if he's a better start that week, I'll be fine with it. Let's see.
A second really doesn't. That's just kind of not enough to really compel me to do it. Because, and again, I don't know why the Atlanta Falcons would get away from what they're doing right now, and that's working. It's not like there's a piece of this offense that's missing, due to injury. It's not like we're trying to get somebody up to speed. It's none of that. This is what they want to do. And Cordero Patterson ends up being a big part of that. So, I don't see any reason to believe that this stops, at any point this season. And to me, there's value in that. There's value in the fact that he's just gonna finish this season as, one of the top, 12, easily top 12 running backs.
Or wide receivers, I guess. I don't know. I still got a list as a wide receiver. It's one of those things where in-season players, like, everyone says sell them, so you're not going to be able to trade them anywhere. Like, everyone's trying to trade away. Then what's the value of trading? None. If my team sucks, I'll take any value on a player I don't think I'm probably going to be starting next year. So a second is fine. Sure. Or even if my team's in the middle and Cordero Patterson is helping keep it there, just let myself drop to the bottom and trade him away for whatever I can get. But at the same time, like I said, if you're competitive, like I say, odds are it probably keeps up at this point.
What I would say is I think rather than a second, I would want the player equivalent of a second round pick in return.
Or you could package him with something to try and tear up. But that's
yeah. Because the problem is, I just think that if you trade him straight up for a second round pick, they're going to be able to make that a later second round pick, and it's going to be
right.
And it makes it that much harder to get your full return when you're dealing with lower hit rates in the later second round. So, just for the sake of argument, I think that's probably right around where his value is. But yeah, I mean, it's for me, if I was going to do it, it's number one, because I'm not really trying to compete this year. And, number two, like I said, I'm trying to get the player equivalent of a second round pick rather than an actual second round pick.
I think the problem is no one's going to want him. And so he's probably got more value on your roster. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, check out what your league thinks. Ridley Truther says, all right, Peter, good to see you gents. You too, sir. Bust out some of your Urban Meyer dance moves. Don't have any. Haven't had. I've never had any dance moves. I definitely don't have any as provocative as that. Appreciate it though. No, I can't. It's just. I suspected Urban Meyer was going to go down like a lead balloon, but it's weird because I don't like the victory lap to take on that is how much you can know without literally paying no attention. Like I have no idea who Urban Meyer is. I
just knew that was a bad idea.
Coaching is like. I just everything that happened. I was like, that's a weird thing to do. Why would you draft a running back when you have a great one? Why would you do that? Like every decision just countered everything I thought was what I've seen other good coaches do. And it's weird for that to fulfill itself. Because I literally know nothing about coaching and nothing about any coach, let alone Urban Meyer or the college system. I didn't even know that existed. And yet I was right. And it's weird. It's weird that I was right. Normally I'm when you don't know anything, you should get it slightly wrong. And this has just been this has been bad. I guess the only thing I can say about the Jags is continuing not to bet on the most promising wide receiver has been fruitful forever. I got suckered into Keelan Cole once upon a time. It's a long story. Don't go there. And I'm not really that worried about Lawrence long term. I mean, this is a rough introduction to the NFL, but I mean, I don't think he's a worse prospect because of what's going on. He's been fine.
Yeah.
Same with Wilson, to be fair. The problem with not doing a lot of quarterback evaluation is just I'm still waiting. Like I'll wait till the end of next season before I have a firm opinion on him, probably. So there's definitely a hold. The next thing I got in my notes is is DJ Moore a top 5 wide receiver? Because I was thinking about it this offseason. You've got Chase, Lamb, Jefferson, and Metcalf, 24 or under, balling out with their own issues and problems, but also amazing production and are obviously very, very, very good. All good rookie prospects, highly drafted. So they kind of have to be really highly ranked in Dynasty. But that pushes people like Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams and Calvin Ridley having a difficult year this year down, which means I think there's going to be a lot of wide receiver value. Like I said at the start, ADP for running backs is going to drop. So some of those elite level wide receivers are going to rise a little bit. Tight ends too, probably. Kyle Pitts aside. But DJ Moore... I think he's an elite level prospect player, but he's always had a quarterback that fails to produce touchdowns. Sam Darnold's mostly producing rushing touchdowns at this point, which isn't great. This isn't great. But I mean, at least it's hopeful that he's not as, the Adam Gase effect, he's not as bad as we maybe feared. And DJ Moore, even with an extra couple touchdowns a year, is literally what we thought Calvin Ridley was for this year. I mean, it's an elite level prospect. So what are you doing with DJ Moore on Dynasty? Is he a target? Is he a top 5 wide receiver? What? I want him in my top 5. But with those top 4, I guess they have to be in the top 4.
The tough part is if you're gonna even put DJ Moore in that conversation, it feels like you have to talk that way about Cooper Kupp.
Right.
Mike Williams.
I do, though. That's the thing. Cooper Kupp and Tyler Lockett forever.
Yeah.
baby,
Yeah. I guess the bottom line is I don't think that there's room in the top 5 for him, and it's not meant to be a knock on him. It's again, I think that we just need to kind of reassess some processes a little bit. And
processes.
For me, it really kind of starts with, like, instead of just kind of necessarily moving guys into the top 5, especially after just 4 weeks.
Right.
Before we do that, we have to look at the guys who are already there and figure out, like, why am I taking him out of the top 5? Like,
right.
is there an actual reason to take Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams,
See,
TK
I got a lot of
Metcalf?
questions about that in the thread I did, and I was like, "Look, I am team old guy. I want Lockett, I want Thielen, I want Amari Cooper. Like, those are the wide
Yeah.
receivers I really want to trade into, or I want on my rosters, because I don't think they stop producing when they hit 27.
Yeah.
In fact, that's like the golden age of their production. But when you're talking about dynasty ranks and why it seems so antithesis to anyone that's used to playing redraft or just thinking practically on who you want to start, it's over under. It's like, if all of them get hurt, who would you rather have on your roster? It's the younger guy, because there's more benefit. Like, all score 0, at least the younger guys in the NFL for longer, presumably.
Mhm.
And all of them ball out. Like, all of them finish wide receiver 1 to 5. Who would you rather have? Well, the younger guy. There's no difference between all of them. I'll just take the extra edge with the youth.
Sure.
And that's one way of thinking about how young guys elevate in ranks so much. Like, I don't think those 4 necessarily outproduce Hill or Adams or Keenan Allen, who's someone I want to talk about, or Cooper or Kupp or Ridley, and so on and so forth. But everything else being equal, if I think they're all good, you'd lean on the youth because it's Dynasty and it has value to trade a younger player. Also, everyone gets really excited about younger players. Say, forget the pain of Odell Beckham and Mike Evans and all of them, actually. And so there's extra value in it. You can trade Chase for more than you can trade Cooper Kupp for. That's why, because Dynasty has this weird thing called value, which has some level of power in a Dynasty league. It's not that they are better or they'll finish higher. It's just they have a little bit more value for a little bit longer.
Doesn't that feel flawed, though? Like, it's because we always talk about playing in a 3-year window to 3 to 5 year window, which some people do, some people don't. But the way that you can apply it, regardless of what type of window you're trying to play in, is just kind of recognizing and acknowledging that Cooper Kupp, even if rather than trade away Cooper Kupp for Jamar Chase right now, I mean, Cooper Kupp is still going to hold that value for several years. Like,
I don't think so, though. That's a Dynasty thing, though. He was already, he was being drafted outside the top 24 this offseason.
Yeah.
ADP, a DLF ADP. Like, I don't care if it maintains that value. Chase was being drafted in the second round in startups by the end of the offseason, and he's not going to drop. I mean, you can already trade him for more than you can Cooper Kupp. Like, it's not the production. Like, I would feel comfortable with all of them on my roster over the next 2-3 years. Guaranteed, I agree. But if you take Cooper Kupp to someone in your league and say, give me that running back, or you take Chase to them in your league and say, give me that running back, you're more likely to get him if you have Chase.
Right? Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. And it's true. And you can leverage that. I still say it's flawed, but it exists. So
it's an edge to take advantage of. But the problem is, I think the problem in Dynasty is that's why they elevate, but everyone knows it. Like, no one's surprised. So, like, it's hard to especially if you're playing in a pretty decent league. Like, it's hard to capitalize on it because everyone wants to trade back because they want to draft the other players.
Right.
And if everyone's trying to trade back, it ends up being you should trade up probably. But yeah, it's difficult. It's flawed and it's not, if you know what I mean. Like, I know. Let's pick one. Justin Jefferson, since I keep using Chase. Justin Jefferson has 2 years of elite production now. Him and Tyreek Hill, who's more likely to finish in the top 12 next year? Both would be my answer. Like, I wouldn't bet against either of them doing it. So you just take the younger guy, right? Now, if you trade Hill and then Justin Jefferson doesn't finish in the top 12, you win. But you still got Jefferson with, more youth and longer to go. So it becomes this redraft conversation. And redraft players have to be a lot more pernickety about who is literally going to outscore the other player, with Dynasty players always kind of, what's this with my hands? What are hands anyway? They try to mitigate the fact that we don't do well at predicting that, because someone can get injured. Calvin Ridley can just have a terrible team that can't support him. And so we're just like, value will make all this better. It's okay, Calvin Ridley, you're still only 25. It's okay. We can do this next year. And whereas if you drafted trying to think of an old guy not doing well right now, Julio, I guess. Julio got injured. Then you can't smooth it over with that value. Like, Julio's going to have less value this offseason just because of his age. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's flawed, but it's also, since everyone in your league knows it,
right?
It's hard to take advantage of, if you know what I mean. Or that's what I'm finding. So I'm just playing in leagues with you at this point, you and those like you, and like no one will give it up. No one's giving me a second for Canara Patterson. No one's trading me Hill for Justin Jefferson. But I think other leagues you might find that happening in. I guess unless you have anything else to add to that, like I keep feeling like I'm missing someone. Like Michael Thomas, is he no longer a top? I guess not. And again, that's crazy, just because he's old and injured this year. Because he's probably going to produce when he comes back, as long as they find a damn quarterback. But it does bleed on to, there are some Dynasty running backs that I don't think are going anywhere, despite the fact I think top 24 running backs going to fall. Like, I don't think Barkley and CMC drop too far, if at all. I think DeAndre Swift and Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor are all going to be drafted in the first round, if not the first 2 rounds. And that's kind of my rough top 5 right now. It's CMC, Barkley, Najee, and JT and Swift, just based on age and also production at this point. Is there anyone else I'm missing that should be in there?
Man, it is so damn tempting to put Bijan Robinson there.
You see, that's the thing. It's going to be rookie to be named, right? I don't even know who they are yet, but it's going to be the rookies. Yeah.
Because it's so tough, because where I say I feel like our process on running backs is flawed. Christian McCaffrey, to me, does not belong in the top 5 at this point. He's coming off the field every single game when he's actually quote unquote healthy. Like, he cannot, he comes off the field, multiple times every game, and it's always with a different injury. Like, at this point, we don't like the term injury prone, but man, like, that's kind of what's going on at this point. And there's just no upside. There's he just kind of is what he is at this point, and it includes missed time, significant missed time every single season for the rest of his career. That's kind of what we're looking at this point with Christian McCaffrey. So we should really be looking for guys who should have similar type of volume, a similar role in their respective offense, even if they're not as talented as Christian McCaffrey. If they just haven't hit that usage threshold that Christian McCaffrey seems to be at, find the guys who haven't got there yet, because those are the guys who really should have the top 5 value to me, is the guys who, be ageist when it comes to running backs.
Running backs, it's okay to be, but at the same time, like, I guess that's the question I'm kind of underlying all of this with, and I don't know what your answer, I don't really know what my answer is at this point, but it's given all this, Dynasty knowledge we're sharing right now, what does that mean you do? Like, I constantly get, like, the fact DLF always wants you to put actionable information. It's in the instructions in your articles. Like, you do, months of research and you write it all up, and then you read the little note in their article notes, which is give them actionable information, basically. Like, what does all of that mean? Do they trade away a player? Do they trade for a player? Do they give up and start playing redraft? What does it mean? And I don't know, but I do think it's going to be those older running backs starting to look more tempting to me, because Christian McCaffrey might fall because of his ages and injuries. And if I can draft these young wide receivers early and pick up, David Montgomery is going to continue to fall, I imagine, but the workload's still there. He's older. I want those younger running backs, but if the running back ADP is falling, and those young running backs, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm starting to wonder if Barkley and CMC become really good values for next year, and that's where my attention is this offseason. I don't know what it is for you, but Moon gives you some time to think about that. Moon asks, in a 1 QB league, Keenan Allen or a first for DJ Moore in a second. Those are two players I would target. DJ Moore, because I think he's underrated. I think he's potentially top 5 dynasty wide receiver, like we were just saying, who's going to get pushed down because young, shiny things. And so far, no, the touchdowns haven't quite crept up. And Keenan Allen, on the other hand, is on team old guy. Everyone thinks he's going to stop producing, and I don't. And I actually think, I wanted to talk about him later, I think he's the wide receiver 1 still on the Chargers. And I think his production should continue to bounce up like it did a little bit last week. Just 10 points, but still it's a little upwards. So I want both. This is a team situation thing for me. If my team, and you could go either way with it. That's a really balanced trade. Like if your team sucks, the first helps. If your team sucks, having the younger wide receiver, like Keenan Allen, DJ Moore for me, 1 for 1, but one's older and one's younger. So I probably lean on the side of the first there and take Keenan Allen, but I don't know if that's popular.
No, I think I agree with you, and yeah, it's I can tell you it is unpopular.
Probably.
But yeah, I think that the reality is, Keenan Allen still probably gives you a year or two of similar production to DJ Moore. Is it going to be the same? Probably not, but it's going to be close. Right, it's going to be within, a couple points a game generally, and I think that you can make that up easier with that first round pick than the second round pick. So, I think that you can close the gap on that, between the two, that small scoring difference. I think you're going to probably be able to make that up, making that first round pick.
I think this is the kind of thing where it's a perfectly good trade, but they're not the right targets in this for me. I mean, for you, I think this is a perfectly good trade. Take the side whatever you want. I think it's really well balanced. For me, I'm trying to target Keenan Allen. I'm trying to target, I wrote him down, Michael Thomas, Sutton, maybe he's a little too young, or Amari Cooper, because I think I can trade young players that will produce as well as them, and get extra on top, like this trade does for me. But DJ Moore isn't someone I want to give up because I think he's also a little undervalued. So I think the idea is there. I just think I have DJ Moore on a slightly higher list than maybe whoever's got them in this trade. So I maybe try and switch him out for, I don't know, DJ Moore, who's similar value to him around that age. Higgins, and then I get to keep. I probably get a little bit more on top of that with Higgins, to be honest with you. And I like Higgins a lot. Again, it's just that I think it swings the value better my way. Yeah. Did we answer that? Yeah. We both said the Keenan Allen side.
Yeah.
But maybe explore different options. Allen Robinson, he's on Team Old Guy for me. Like, I'm tired of him being on Team Old Guy. The Jaguars stink seems to follow you everywhere you go.
For him especially, holy cow. To go from Blake Bortles to Trubisky and Andy Dalton, and now even Justin Fields kind of looks like crap. I mean, it's been one game, but it just feels like Allen Robinson is just destined, and he's out of there after this year.
And we'll have the whole thing again. Will he get a good quarterback? Probably not. Probably not.
Especially, I mean, I say he's out of there. The most likely scenario, we really kind of have to say, Chicago versus a field. I think you take Chicago to re-sign him, and I think that might be the worst thing for him. There's one thing.
Allen Robinson for a first. I take Allen Robinson, but it feels icky. And I've mostly just been feeling good about Darnell Mooney. My guy keeps. But right now he's got 14% of the team's expected points. He's wide receiver 60 or so in overall PPR points. But I mean, he's still Allen Robinson. I think the team's just struggling. This is the same thing with Calvin Ridley. Only Allen Robinson's maybe a year or two further down the road. I still think he's good. So if I will take him over a first round pick. I think he's probably still a little value. Like, I don't think you get him for a first at this point, right?
No. Yeah, which just tells me.
No, it's close.
Yeah. Yeah. It tells me that it's not quite time to sell Allen Robinson. I don't think we're quite there yet.
If he's on your roster, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
But if your team sucks, and you want to explore rebuilding, Allen Robinson, trading them for first or adding something to them and getting Justin Jefferson, that's kind of the process of flipping a roster, starting back at zero. You could go that way. I just don't rebuild that way. I don't really have a rebuilding process. I more just target players I think are going to produce better in the future or the same at decent value. And I think Allen Robinson's on that list for me. So yeah, it's a tough one. I don't think we should expect too much more from him. He's going to have better games, but I don't think he's going to have back-to-back top 5 wide receiver games from here on out or anything. He's going to be a difficult start sit for the rest of 2021 anyway, which puts him on my maybe I'll explore a trade if I'm already looking to the future list. MJ, hey, I got that one right. Normally I screw up the simplest names, but I got that one. Great show, guys. Appreciate it. John's here. That's probably what's changing it, because I consistently make badges. Question: Sutton and late first to acquire Hopkins. Man, that's expensive. That seems expensive. Again, this is the thing. I want to say take advantage of an age discount, but if everyone in your league is this sharp, you probably can't. 14-team Superflex. 14 teams does matter to this, and so does the Superflex, I think, because it's about roster management. I'm a contender, so I feel like pulling the trigger.
It gives that first a little extra value.
It does. Superflex. I think Hopkins is already bouncing back up. He's going to acquire the majority of that work on an amazing offense, and I think he's going to be better week to week moving forward. I think you're paying a really hefty price there. Because Sutton's good and in a down, struggling year, but he's also young. You're also adding a first to it. I mean, if you really want to push for this year, that's fine, but it feels like you should be able to get someone like Tyreek Hill or someone that you don't have to wonder about as much. But I don't mind it because I really do think Hopkins is that good and is going to escalate that from here on. How about yourself?
Man, it's kind of the same thing to me as the Keenan Allen trade that we just talked about. It's just there's I just don't think that the scoring difference week to week is big enough between Sutton and Hopkins. And I agree with you. I mean, that offense is the one that you really want as many pieces of as you can get right now as Arizona, but I just don't think that Hopkins is going to outscore Sutton by enough points every single week to make it worthwhile to give up that first. And again, Superflex, that's that rookie pick, the rookie draft. That's kind of your chance to reload on quarterbacks too. So, you're not going to get it with a late first, but it at least puts you in the market so you can potentially move up if you do need quarterback help. So.
Right now, and if it continued, I agree with you, actually. I think they're in a similar category. I think Hopkins will elevate. Right now, the offense is really spread out. AJ Green's getting about almost the same amount of work from last week as Hopkins. And I think he's getting over that lingering injury he had, and it will continue. But that's why I said it seems a lot, because if that doesn't happen, you're definitely overpaying. For Hopkins. And there's a cliff in front of you with Hopkins. He does not bring in trade what he should be this offseason. And I don't mind the all-in mentality. You're going to go win, but it feels like you should be able to have someone that's definitely going to outproduce. I think I'm right on Hopkins, obviously. I think he's going to elevate and get it back into the top 8 in wide receiver scoring. But if he doesn't, it probably doesn't help you win. And you've probably given up too much to get it. So who is a wide receiver you would target? That's probably actually a better question. Who do you think has difference-making ability at wide receiver? And you're going to say no one, and I'm going to hate you forever.
I know. That's really I honestly don't. And this is a sticking point for you and I.
It is.
For you and I get it. But there's just I don't think that wide receivers make a difference.
Right.
Like I don't think they differentiate from one to the next.
I think mathematically top 5 wide receivers provide as much difference making points as top 5 running backs, and I think it's underrated because they do when you count. Like wide receivers average 20 points per game. They provide as many points over replacement as running backs who produce over 20 points per game. And we're talking just top 5. Now, that's what I'm saying about. I'm not sure Hopkins gets back there. I think he should, but that's a buy low opportunity, not a pay as if it's going to happen opportunity.
You also have to figure out like who are those top 5 guys going to be.
That's what I was going to say. Like go target who you really think is going to finish top 5 this year.
Yeah.
And I was trying to pull up a list, and the only one I've made for my podcast was like a value list. But I mean, DJ Moore and Deontay Johnson and Cooper Kupp were the ones who hit my expected points list. You don't have to take my top 5 though. But that's what you should go and do. Try and find a wide receiver you think finishes in the top 5 this year, who's on a team who might be willing to trade for the future with a Sutton and a first. Hopkins is
Tyreek Hill would be a great one.
Yeah. Like I think you get him for that too. If it's the right team, if that team's struggling this year,
I think you could get that. And I just I would start by targeting a wide receiver. Because it's all relative. Their share of the offense. It's a high volume passing offense in Arizona, but there's still it's spread
out.
The word that I've heard you use is congested, and that's kind of what Arizona. That's very much what Arizona is.
Someone that Devontae Adams is in a similar situation with a higher share of his offense. The offense is not as powerful as Arizona right now, but he does have a larger share of it. It ranks 21st in expected points per game, which kind of sucks. But Adams is also missing some touchdowns. Right now, he ranks as wide receiver 8. I wouldn't be surprised to see that go up a little bit if he starts catching some more touchdowns. I think even Adams might be a little bit more sure of a bet. But again,
and probably
if you're like, no, not Adams, go find a top 5 wide receiver for you, and that's the person I'd be. If that's Hopkins, then I'm fine with it. But realize it's an all-in kind of move.
Yeah.
That makes sense? Cool.
Yep.
Give Mac Jones on a 2020. What did I tell you? It's all trade questions. 23 second for Fields and Superflex.
I think the second might be on the wrong side of that one.
Yeah. A lot of these trades are. I feel like the pick's on the wrong side. I'm okay paying a second to get Justin Fields though. I genuinely feel like Fields is a better prospect as a non-quarterback evaluator. So I'll pay a second for a good prospect. Like Mac Jones is executing that offense really well, to be clear. That's what he should be doing. He's doing it at an exceptional level. I think Justin Fields could be better for fantasy, and I'm okay gambling a second just to try and get that upside. So I'd be fine on the Fields side there.
Especially since it's 2 years out. Overall, I'm fine with the framework. I don't think that you have to pay that much, but
if that's offered to you, just accept it. Don't. Yeah. It's not enough. I would be worried about losing the trade rather than countering. If that makes sense,
right?
And because I think Mac's going to be good. I just don't think he's going to be what Justin Fields could be, which is like a difference-making quarterback. But sometimes
all I'm looking for in Superflex.
Did I disappear there for a second?
Yeah, for some reason. That was perfect too. It's like it muted you so I could talk.
Nice.
But yeah,
sorry, I'm gonna shut up then. Go.
But yeah, all I'm looking for at quarterback in Superflex, all I'm looking for is stability. I want guys who are going to keep their jobs, because if they're going to keep their jobs, they're going to be, they all have the same floor. And they have roughly the same ceiling. The only question, the only differentiator at quarterback is how likely are they to get to, how often are they going to, are they going to exceed their floor, and how often are they going to be able to get to their ceiling? Like, that's all it is. It's not about, this guy consistently outscores this guy by, this much. It's not about who's safer. It really does just come down to, who's going to be, a top 12 quarterback for the week more often.
John Bosch is here if you want to say that thing you said earlier. And especially looking at your quarterbacks here, Evan.
Kyle Pitts is a big time sell. He left already. He just came in and he just dropped that. He crop dusted us and left.
I know they're gonna say something. I'm out of here. No, especially given your quarterback situation here, Evan. Like for me, worst case, you're trading away a startable quarterback for the potential of an upscale quarterback, and the risk is not. Yeah, I do that every time. I mean, you might miss out on having Baker Mayfield, who's fine. He's fine. Or Derek Carr. He's fine. You can start him most weeks in a super flex. It's fine. But Justin Fields could be Kyler Murray or Patrick Mahomes level producer. Having said that, that's why I traded for Tua. And since he's on your roster, you know what that felt like. So there is a downside. I'm okay risking it, especially with my depth. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, with that group of quarterbacks too, I do think that you're looking for the guys who are going to get a little bit closer to their ceiling, more often than not. I think Mac Jones is going to be safe. I don't know that he's going to be a starting option for you over Dak Prescott, Trey Lance, those guys in particular, Ryan Tannehill when he's normal, Justin Fields actually has a path into your lineup. I don't know that Mac Jones really does all that often.
Being on the DLF channel is pretty cool. You go to these drops and backgrounds. Like I could make us we could just pretend we're Tyler and we're Addison for a minute. Like look at that. Hey. Anyway, sorry. Okay.
You didn't even hear what I said, did you?
I don't listen to you ever, man.
Especially when I start talking quarterbacks. You're just winning. Let's see what we got for banners here.
I'm like a child. I'm like a child or a cat. My wife says I'm worse than our kids because if we're waiting somewhere, I just can't stand it. And I'll start we go to the doctors and I'll start doing stuff. I'll open cupboards. I turned on a machine on a wall once in a doctor's office and I don't know what it was, but it made a really big noise and I couldn't turn it off until the nurse came and helped. I frustrate my wife a lot. I get bored and I just start playing with things. It was a dentist office, and it made a humming noise. It was weird.
You're playing with things in a dentist office. You're
just turning on, turning on dangerous equipment. See what happens. Other major things I think happened last week that might be relevant. Laviska Shenault became the wide receiver one for the Jaguars. I think a lot of people will be excited about that. I am not. That's my full take. Just no Jaguar wide receivers. If Marvin Jones gets cheaper again, I guess, sure. But right now, I think you miss the window if you didn't take it. And what do you think of Mike Williams going forward? Like I said, I expect more of this. Mike Williams to have exponential air yards, but Keenan Allen to be the more regular and wide receiver one fantasy-wise on the team. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think.
All right, I'm just saying because last week I said that and I just got hammered.
Really
for 2 days, all I got in my mentions was people disagreeing, calling me bad names, or liking the tweet that was owning me. And I have not seen one of those people come back to say, you know what?
I don't know how I missed out on that.
Okay, that worked out. All right, good job. I got people saying I shouldn't be able to be a senior writer at DLF. They were like, someone is a senior writer at DLF. And could you come back and say sorry for that? Like you were trying to get me out my job? And maybe just hey, heads up. You were right. just for this 1 week, just so I don't get okay. So yeah, weird that you agree with me. I don't enjoy it. Stop agreeing with me.
But I'm not a senior writer, so I'm allowed.
I forgot I was. It means nothing. It's just it's like a token they gave me. You can say you're a senior writer now. Thank you. Thanks, boss. Go do all that work now. Okay. All right, stuff that I've got in a minor category. I don't know why these are arbitrary categories. Daryl Henderson just came straight back to being running back one for that team, and on that team, it's significant. I gotta pray that one of my deep running backs getting the volume actually starts putting up points, and I think Daryl Henderson might be the one. Maybe Sony Michel didn't keep any of his work from Henderson's injury week.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Daryl Henderson I was telling you off air. I'm not a tape grinder. I know what I like when it comes to, each of these positions. I know what I see that looks, that's appealing to me. And when it comes to running backs, I like the guys who run violent, who run angry. And that's what Henderson's doing. He looks, at least for this year, he looks to me like a borderline elite running back. I think that's somebody they want a piece of. And I've never seen anything from Sony Michel that makes me think that he could, take a healthy Daryl Henderson off the field.
There's no need to be hateful to on Sony.
I don't like Sony.
It was a Belichick problem, don't you know?
I'm sure he's a nice guy.
I'd say Mike Davis and Daryl Henderson might be the two most undervalued in terms of the workload is there. I really think the points are going to flow again, but Henderson is someone I actually send offers out on, just because, like, Atlanta Falcons are just too painful right now. That team's a mess, and so I'm a little more skittish, even though Mike Davis is like top 12 in terms of usage, but Henderson's there, and the team's still rolling. So Henderson is someone I'd send, discount running back one offers on. I was trying to read MJ's comment here. I have Hillo. That's cool.
Oh, he already has Tyreek Hill. We were telling him.
Oh, is that cool?
Trade Sutton in a first for Hill, but he already has him. Yeah, Devontae Adams then.
Okay, he's not actually asking questions. He's just showing off his roster. Like, I got Hill. I got
just roster baiting.
Who else do I need?
Tell me who your quarterbacks are. That's all I care about.
There you go. Mahomes and Kyler Murray. Should I go get someone else? No, I think you're good.
Yes, you need more.
All right, let me ask you this one more open-ended because I keep telling you things and you go yes, and that's frustrating for me. Who do you think might be undervalued, like a wide receiver you would go and target?
Yep, totally.
Oh yeah, totally. He's totally killing it for the Cardinals right now. I mean, good old totally. Is there one?
Guys I would target at cost. I mean, Calvin Ridley, I think is someone that I would. Yeah, I mean, we're really just kind of talking about through 4 weeks who are some guys that are underproducing relative to what we thought they would do. Calvin Ridley kind of epitomizes that for me. AJ Brown, between underperforming and then dealing with injury. Yeah.
Do you know anything about that injury? I'm like no one. I don't even try to be a doctor. I know we're meant to try to be doctors. Instead, I just wait. Like someone will tell me eventually. I don't need to go get my medical degree.
I think we have doctors at DLF.
Exactly. We have actual. I don't need to
like real doctors.
Yeah, like I don't. Calvin Ridley's on my list. I already mentioned Keenan Allen. In terms of underperforming, and I expect him to come back up. I mean, Stephon Diggs is, but no one's falling for it. No one's like, oh, I'm really worried about Stephon Diggs. Like, that's not a thing. No one's worried about Stephon Diggs.
Robert Woods. I think Robert.
No.
You don't like Robert Woods? Come on.
No.
Peter Howard, listen.
It's not happening, man. I was right. Just cut it loose. Rip the Band-Aid off there.
So Cooper Kupp now is just all of a sudden just a touchdown machine forever.
Yes, sir. No, he was always kind of the volume leader, and Woods was more of the long distance touchdown guy. I just felt like Kupp was going to be the guy who became the wide receiver one there, rather than have this nasty split. I think that was more of a product of Goff needing extra options and a dump off. It's not that Robert Woods is bad now. It's just I think the volume keeps going to Kupp, and Woods remains a more boom and bust. Like, he can have good games because he's good, and so is Matthew Stafford, and so he's going to catch some good balls. And in terms of being a regular starter this year, I don't think it's bouncing back up for him. But you're right, Cubs touchdown total can't keep up. Maybe some go to Daryl Henderson. You never know.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, and I mean Higbee probably gets in on it, but yeah, I don't know. I just think that because they really kind of play two different positions, and there are ways there are ways to defend and kind of delete Cooper Kupp from the game plan from the game script.
Or at least make it more difficult, because he is very good. But yeah, I know what you mean. Some teams are just going to push volume somewhere else. Eventually, you get a good, there are difference-making defensive backs. That's not going to work out for you well, unless they're all on Woods, because he's a deep, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think that consistency is coming back from him. But you could say the same thing for as far as discount, like people might be a little, because we've been waiting for a while. Odell Beckham's getting the workload. It's on the Browns. They can't keep running forever. Please, for the love of God. Like, I like Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb as well as the next guy. But every now and again, you got to pass. Like, this is Baltimore South at this point. And they're ranking number 1 in running plays per game, I think. But and in terms of volume, through 2 games, Odell Beckham has a really huge share of that receiving game. So, like, as a cheaper option, even Calvin Ridley and Keenan Allen, I don't think they come cheap. I think as someone who rosters a lot of Odell Beckham, if my team sucks especially, that's a frustrated team manager right there. They might be willing to give him for less than those other guys. And it could,
which is a mistake,
Yeah, it is mistake, but
that was literally the only game in every other game on the entire slate this past week had significant fantasy goodness for us, except for the Browns and Vikings. Like, just everybody sucked. Kareem Hunt randomly gets in the end zone, and that was about it. Like, I mean, Nick Chubb gets his obligatory 100.
I was gonna say Nick Chubb's gonna Nick Chubb.
But like, Kirk Cousins at least in Scott Fishbowl scoring was negative points, I think, or no, he was just
rough. Yeah,
he was like 0.12 is what he scored, and it's like when the quarterbacks aren't doing anything. I mean, this is just that was just a waste of time for fantasy players.
All right, so was that yes on Odell Beckham or no? I can't actually make up my mind.
Oh yeah, no, I love Beckham going forward. I can't imagine that they're going to keep playing that type of ugly football.
Hopefully. And again, since he's been back, he's actually had an Odell Beckham like workload. It's just the team's a smaller passing offense than the Giants were in the heyday. But OBJ is still doing OBJ things. It's just the team has to throw a little bit more. How about tight end? You got anyone like you're looking for a upside tight end to trade for? Like, Logan Thomas killed me in a bunch of places this week. I missed that news blurb.
Oh yeah,
must have missed that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to buy a little bit high on Dawson Knox, but I think that's a pretty good one.
Schultz as well, I've had pointed out.
Yes. Yeah, he at this point he's completely vanquished Blake Jarwin. That's a good one.
Yep.
I mean, Pitts. I still think Pitts is kind of a.
We've mentioned Pitts, but I still don't think you're getting them like.
You're not getting them super cheap.
Yeah.
But you don't have to give up Travis Kelce anymore, Bosch.
And there's other guys you mentioned. Also, I don't know if their value holds. Like, I think they're good for this year. Schultz is good for this year. I think we have more. Like, I don't think. I could be wrong, but I don't think they've earned the job. We expect them to be this next year as well, even if it keeps up for this year. Dynasty-wise, if my team sucks, I'm looking for a discount tight end. It's still Evan Ingram, guys. Like, he's been back for 2 games now. He has 11% of the team's share, which ranks like of expected points. It ranks like 9th at the position, which sucks because at tight end you want the top 2. But as far as discounts go, I would say Mike Gesicki, just because no one seems to ever notice that he's a top 12 tight end consistently. Yeah. But as far as players currently not producing there, Evan Ingram should bounce up a little bit on the Giants, especially with the wide receivers just being a mess over there right now. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. I honestly don't care about Evan Ingram, but I recognize the production. He's just so boring to me. Like, he's one of those guys that I just. No, so that's why. Yeah, go buy him. I don't care.
Evan Ingram, the last rookie tight end to have a top 5 season in his rookie year. You mean that? I mean, Kyle Pitts might be Evan Ingram one day. So, there's that upside there. Not rolling with that one.
Gross.
Okay. Evan, how you doing, man? And what are your thoughts on taxi stashes at running back? Good question. Actually, you got any deep running backs you're still holding? You know, don't forget to remind them that you told them in a few weeks. It's just every backup running back, right?
Yeah. I mean, just load up on running backs. Definitely get your own handcuffs. What did I just do? I mean,
Don't start that fight again, man.
I know. It was a nice vacation for me the last time I said that.
I don't have a list for that, so I can't pull one up. I'd say if I have a process, it's go look for running backs who have done it before. And are playing a backup role right now. Jamal Williams is probably still listed as a backup running back. Like, the team sucks, but I got to imagine he produces more if something happens to Swift. And unfortunately, that's the thought process of taxi squad or whatever stash is at running back. You're just looking for guys behind guys who you think could do pretty well if they were gone.
I mean, on that same team, Jamar Jefferson. There's really is, honestly.
I actually have Jamar Jefferson taxi squad at a bunch of places because I think he's a decent prospect. I think the only thing, like, that just sounds like take all of them. I would target players, not situations. Not like Tennessee. Whoever gets the workload in Tennessee is going to be Derrick Henry. I think is the wrong process. Instead, it's if there's no one else, will this player be good? So that's why I end up liking the Detroit backups better than the Tennessee backups. I don't think Tennessee's got anyone I'd be interested in. I think Detroit has a few players I'd be interested in if pass to opportunity opened up, sadly, and hopefully not. Same with Los Angeles Chargers. Like, I like Justin Jackson for a long time, but at this point, I don't know I can keeping the faith. And whoever else he has behind him right now.
Larry Roundtree is a...
Yeah, I heard that name before. I don't know much about it. I'm not that interested. But yeah, I would target the players instead of the situations. I guess that's where I'm a slightly different.
Really? Yeah, I'm very equal opportunity when it comes to running backs.
Just all
because I mean, I don't need them to be good. I don't think very many running backs are particularly quote unquote good. Like, there's nothing really to their job that really is like that indicates talent per se. I mean, and there's some of them that are very good, pass catchers, very good route runners. Particularly have, particularly good vision or particularly good balance or, whatever. Like, there's some stuff that separates some of them, but generally,
really, honestly, to back you up here, like, even the ones that I know are just genuinely better than everyone else. Like, talking about your Barclays or Christian McCaffreys, like, the difference maker. The only real thing you've got is they get more volume.
Right.
Like, the efficiency doesn't even really matter. Like, there's not a lot to prove it. You just kind of have to know it. So yeah, it's about volume, and good players equal more volume. It tends to be my equation.
Yep.
Sorry, Karen. So, do you have like anyone in particular you're stashing? Jamar Jefferson, you mentioned.
Yeah, Jefferson was a good one. Kylan Hill's a good one. Khalil Herbert.
Don't know that.
I think Chris Evans is a good one.
Where's Herbert?
Khalil Herbert, he's Chicago Bears. Okay. So he's kind of next in line behind Damian Williams, who's a little banged up himself. So, I would not be surprised. So this is my whole strategy when it comes to running backs. Like, I'm really just kind of looking for the guys who, like, it just kind of comes in waves, And right now we're kind of in the second wave. Damian Williams is a second wave guy. Chuba Hubbard is a second wave guy. So what happens when they get hurt? Then we move on to the third wave. Who's the next group of running backs? I mean, maybe it's Rodney Smith, maybe it's Royce Freeman, but and then
I don't think any of those guys
good. They're not good, but they're going to be on the field. If Chuba Hubbard were to get hurt, and running backs do that, that's just kind of the job description calls for them to throw themselves into a mass of humanity several times a game. It's a violent position, and that's why they end up missing so much time. So
This is kind of what I mean, though. Like Mike Davis got more touches once Christian McCaffrey is out than Wayne Gorman did once Saquon Barkley was out. Do I know one's better than the other? No, I don't.
No,
I don't know.
Neither of them are anything.
One has shown this. They tends to get more touches when the situation opens up, and I guess that's what I meant by players. Like, go find anyone else who's done that before. Malcolm Brown. I mean, I don't think he's as good as Mike Davis when the guy in front of him goes down, but he might have already taken it over from Myles Gaskin, and he's been consistently decent in terms of volume, even as a running back too, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, like there are some guys who end up kind of separating themselves even without an injury, and if we can find that would be great. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell would have been an excellent stash because now here he is taking a job away from Miles Sanders. So if we can find guys like that, that'd be great. But
like running, like players we find with this process that amp up in value because everyone's so sure they're good, and without having seen it before, like those, like AJ Dillon, that's who I've got in my head. Like when it was Aaron Jones behind Jamal Williams, I was all in on getting Aaron Jones because I was really convinced on that player's rookie profile. AJ Dillon's fine. He was good. He's a good rusher. Yeah. I'm not saying he's a bad player or anything, but like there's nothing like Aaron Jones stood out like head and shoulders. It happens very rarely at running back, which is why I'm so sure of it. And AJ Dillon is fine. I think if Aaron Jones is gone, AJ Dillon would be a very poor replacement. And so like anyway, this is a slightly side subject, but when a taxi squad running back that we're talking about ends up being like a second round rookie pick value, like that's trade him away every time. Like I'd still trade. I still think you can get more for AJ Dillon right now than most of the running backs we're talking about. I don't think there's any extra value there. We don't know they'd take over any more touches than AJ Dillon would. Sorry, side point, but
what do you do then when you had and this not to take us down not to get us into deep dark waters here, but the whole for me the whole argument in favor of handcuffing your own running backs is if Aaron Jones were to get hurt and you traded away AJ Dillon for a second round pick because that feels like max value. Well, now how do you set your lineup though? If you don't have Aaron Jones and now you don't have AJ Dillon, like in that moment for that 1 week that Aaron Jones is out, for instance, who are you starting? And
I don't know. We'd have to look at the draft, right? Because I don't need to know who else I drafted. Yeah. I think the broad point is it's not like I don't want my own handcuff. It's about cost, relative upside. You got a lot going on. Like you can. I think I drafted my own backup in Scott Fishbowl. I drafted Malcolm Brown and Myles Gaskin, but it's because like Malcolm Brown was like a last round pick. Like it's not like you should avoid it at all costs.
Sure.
But I'm not drafting like AJ Dillon. I'd have to look, but I imagine he's a top 10 round pick in Scott Fishbowl because of that upside, and it's just too much. Like I can take a swing on someone else right there. Deebo Samuels and Cooper Kupp was drafted pretty late this year. You might have missed out on them because you were drafting, your backup. I think that's too much. So it's all relative. It's not like avoid it at all costs. It's if everything else is equal, I'd probably rather bet on the upside of someone else's handcuff. But if we're talking about the 20th round, I don't care. Yeah. If it makes you feel safer, sure. I mean, sure.
That's fair. I think that's a much more like level-headed position than
I think that
all of Twitter wanted to take.
When you ended up, canceling yourself, I did a podcast about the issue, and I was like, I think there are so few things we can say definitively has more upside. Like we know so little for sure that the few things we can say, like receiving matters for running back, and so everyone's mad at Derrick Henry for somehow still being good. It's like it's still true, but it can happen that way. And it's like rostering someone else's backup in very simple terms has more upside, but it's like tiny. It's like most backup running backs aren't Christian McCaffrey or even Mike Davis last year. And that was like the cheapest and worst top 12 running back season ever, but it was still top 12. But even when it's that good, it's not normally that good. And so it's such a small thing. You could do it wrong every time and be fine. Like it doesn't bother. But because it's so certain, We can show it on a chart. It feels like it should have more, and it doesn't have a lot of value. It's just yeah, it has more upside, but it's not make or break. They're not James Robinson. They're normally Myles Gaskin and Malcolm Brands,
Right. Well, and the bottom line is it's kind of regardless of whose backup it is, you just need a lot of running backs. And it just kind of comes back to the point. It's just the nature of the position leads to a lot of injuries, and the timeliness of that injury is somewhat important because we need to be able to set lineups every week. But at the end of the day, it's really just, it's not even necessarily about, having your own backup. It's just, going out of your way to avoid your own backup. That's not it either. We really just need a lot of running backs just to get through a season, and especially now that it's a 17-week season instead of 16. I
think that the only thing that gets lost, the other thing that gets lost in there is I roster more running backs on my bench than wide receivers.
Yes,
but I'm flexing wide receivers. That's the other, top 24 running backs aren't more valuable than wide receivers. It's just because they switch over so much, they're much more likely to elevate into your starting roster all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Whereas in terms of your flex spot, wide receivers at the same positional ranking score you more points more often. So it's situational based as well. If I suck this year, and a lot of my teams are just apparently sucking, even though they shouldn't, it flips. I'm going to roster more wide receivers. There's more upside in trade. There's more potential that they have longer term value because, a lot of these backup running backs we're talking about will be free agents, and then we'll forget about them until they turn up on the back of some other roster. So, yeah. And then it depends on what league you're playing in, because if everyone in your league is rostering running backs, you probably have more wide receivers on your bench, and it's fine. Yeah. It's all, you got to make basic rules for yourself, but then you got to adjust based on the season, based on your league, based on how good your team is. There's nothing that works in every instance. Nothing, apart from drafting Christian McCaffrey. And not even that. 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, baby.
Drafting James Robinson. That's what you should have said.
Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb being undervalued. There you go. 2 years in a row. Accurate. But it won't work next year because those are very specific running backs. I was thinking about it's that point of the season where you're looking at your roster. It's okay, what did I do wrong this year? And this year, it's really hard to figure out because I ended up, a lot of the things that I bet on that aren't working are kind of right. Myles Gaskin did get the chance. He just wasn't able to replicate the points. And Daryl Henderson got hurt and Christian McCaffrey got hurt on opposite ends of the spectrum. So you can't really say, well, I will just not draft injured running backs next year because that's not a thing. A lot of it is not going hard enough after the few things I felt pretty confident about. I felt pretty confident Nick Chubb was a top 12 running back again, difference making top 12 running back. But he was really expensive and he's an old running back, so I didn't do it. And because it violated some rule that I had, I couldn't go after this very specific take as hard as I probably should have. I felt really confident on Deebo Samuel this year. Well, semi-confident because Brandon Ayuk had an amazing rookie year and it's probably a bye right now. But I felt pretty good that my reasoning was sound, but not. I didn't go all in on it. So I have Deebo Samuel on very few rosters. And so I think looking over my teams, what went real wrong is those difference-making players I got right, I wasn't willing to pay for or do enough to get. And in one league, I was literally just told, no. He didn't even want to know who it was or what I would offer. They were just I'm not doing trades right now. It's damn it, but I know I won this thing.
I'm not doing trades. I'm really just trying to do nothing right now.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I feel good. Any thoughts on? Sorry,
I mean, to your points, the thing that I did wrong this year, I waited too long on wide receivers. I mean, I definitely. I stand by the idea that you can get similar production by taking a wide receiver in the 7th round as you could in the 2nd or 3rd round. I still believe that, but I think I waited a little too long, I think I was drafting a little bit like a defiant teenager after you were the one saying, yeah, like you've got to prioritize wide receivers. And I was like, make me. And
no, I do the same thing. You should see my best ball teams are pure Juju Smith-Schuster and Evan Ingram, because it was the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, you know, every time, and it was a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, and I mean, in those leagues where I ended up with Tyler Lockett, I mean, you know, I'm looking like a genius. But in most leagues, it was Odell Beckham and Robert Woods, and yeah, I'm not looking so good right now.
Yeah, Team Old Guy is almost undefeated. Like those great players that fall for weird little reasons make it are the bets down there, if you know what I mean. Like if you can get Tyler Lockett and Cooper Kupp, I think literally everyone and their mother was talking about the wide receiver, and even Woods was a good pick this offseason. It hasn't worked out, but he was being drafted so low. Like wide receiver 36, if I remember right. Like, I get it at that point. I mean, yeah, but if you're betting everything on him, that's where it gets difficult. Sorry, we're going on. 4-star says, any thoughts on Tyler Washington quarterback? I don't. Not just saying, like, I don't know how to evaluate quarterbacks in terms of what means they're going to be well going forward. What I would say is he's doing a lot better than people seem to say for fantasy. I don't know how it's shaping out in terms of being an NFL player, but he seems to be scoring more points. Like he's rushed a little bit. I think he's got a rushing touchdown at least once. It's consistent production, and I like it. Gardner Minshew will constantly make me nervous. So in Dynasty, if I can get a first for a quarterback who just shows up like this, I'll trade him away. And I think they're probably worth that in Superflex for sure.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you think about, and this is literally how I value quarterbacks, but you think about this 2021 rookie class when we actually had a fairly deep group of quarterbacks. You know, and we still have Mac Jones going somewhere around like 108, 109. Right. So, you know, if a late first, you were not going to be able to replace any starting NFL quarterback with a rookie quarterback because they were all off the board by then. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, to me, any quarterback who's starting in the NFL should be worth at least a late first round pick, because, you know, you're going to need that pick to try and replace them. And, you know, in most cases, you're still going to be too late. But what it does is it lets you use, you know, your natural pick on a quarterback. And now you've got that later round pick that you can use on a different position of need. So, but yeah, I mean, just based on the fact that he's an NFL starting quarterback,
he should be worth a first, because
he should be worth the first, because you're not going to be able to replace him.
We talk about them with such, especially in Dynasty, and they're good, they're great, wonderful to have. They're liquid value, you can spend them on things, but they're almost more valuable they are more valuable before you make the pick. They're like a 27% shot of getting a fantasy relevant player. So it shouldn't be as valued, but also they are valuable. Yeah. So yeah, it should be worth a first. In terms of, like, if you've got him in Superflex, I feel pretty confident you can start him as a startable option the rest of the way this year. It's just with Dynasty, we're all thinking, well, it probably won't go on for much longer. Like, I don't think he's Dak Prescott. I think he's more Gardner Minshew. Like, good. Probably better than Washington ever could have expected. I don't know it continues. That probably covers it for me. What do you guys think about Dan Arnold? I think he changed teams mid-season, and I missed it. And the only reason I know that is because I had to switch him in my projections. Like, something wasn't adding up. I was like, wait, you've changed teams, you dirty, filthy tight end.
Like a tree falling in the woods.
Yeah. I don't think much. He's one of those players, like, I got him in a trade as a throw-in. Bobby Koch, you know Bobby. He really liked Dan Arnold, but he was trying to get a trade done with me, so he threw Dan Arnold in, and I was like, I literally don't care. But he's like, I really like him though. I was like, don't trade him to me then. But he did, and I've just been trying to trade him away ever since, and no one's biting. Tight end is a longer position. You do get Delaney Walkers who do like nothing and then suddenly break out in year 5. but they are the rare bunch. And Dan Arnold's been on the field and actually playing tight end for a real long time, or long enough that we should have seen more by now. That's why. It's nothing Dan Arnold did. I'm just betting on career arcs. Yep. Goddard plus a second for him. You traded Goddard and a second round pick for Dan Arnold. That would be extreme for me.
Yeah, I hope that's a typo.
Yeah, I'm guessing
he
be honest. He either got it or
traded Goddard. Oh, traded Goddard for Dan Arnold and a second.
Yeah, I would want Goddard. I don't know why everyone hates Goddard.
I'd still want Goddard. I mean, the second is probably without a tight end premium, the second round pick is probably the most valuable piece of that trade. But
even with tight end premium, the second round pick probably is because premium doesn't matter; it just changes the position, but not the flex scoring. Yeah, I just no. Goddard's been like a significant tight end now 2 years in a row with Zach Ertz. I don't know why everyone thinks we have to wait for Zach Ertz to leave. Zach Ertz is good. Dallas Goddard is good.
Jalen Hurts doesn't throw to either of them.
Again, most do nothing. Albert O continues to be a really good prospect. Remember, like all the tight. If you find a tight end that scores points and is streamable regular in Dynasty, where we don't get living the stream with tight end as much in Dynasty, because believe it or not, even on a 25-team roster, most tight ends are rostered, even in non-tight end premium. Like if you find one that is streamable, you do have to value that to a certain extent. They're not Kelsey, they're not Waller, but like you can't stream 8 points regularly off the waiver wire. I mean, yeah. Do you find the same thing? Like I go like time to stream my tight end, and it's Dan Arnold's all the way down.
Right.
It's just
that's just it. Yeah. I mean, they're different names, but I mean, every now and then you get a game like we just had from CJ Uzomah, but man, that's hard to chase. So
it's hard to predict. That's why I insist that's part of your wide receiver problem. Like there are points down there. Good luck starting them because there are a bunch of really good athletes and football players in the NFL. And some of them are going to score points now and again because they're good. They're amazing athletes. They're good. They're like in the top 5.5% of the world at a particular thing. So occasionally you're going to get Uzomah, but
even the
guys just never going to know.
Even the guys who break out and become consistent. Like we can't even predict that. I had no idea that Dawson Knox was coming. Like of all the guys that I was looking at as potential breakout tight ends, Dawson Knox was just nowhere near that list. And last year it was Robert Tonyan and Logan Thomas.
Tunyan's been okay-ish. I'd have to check, but he's still part of that offense. The offense is just worse, and he was living on too many touchdowns. Yeah, it's just what helps me with tight end is remembering everyone else makes it too complicated, and the fact that there is no player you can go and look for that there isn't someone saying, "I called it." Like we call all of them, and then the one person who gets it right gets to say they knew. But again, it's one of those things that we didn't actually know. He was no better or worse bet than anyone else. Right. Like, oh God, who is that guy? Ian Thomas, right? Carolina, now another team. Great prospect. He was no better or worse prospect or potential bet than anyone else, to be honest with you. But he became the buzzword and became like most work out that way. And what's helped me is remembering people make this position too tough. The ones who produce, like at wide receiver, continue to produce. There are about 2 difference-making tight ends a year. Sometimes just one, and sometimes none. Like Travis Kelce was the tight end 1 in a year recently, and literally his points per game were so low he didn't matter. Travis Kelce, but normally you get 2. Right now it's Waller and it's Kelce. After that, Kittle has done it before, so he's the best bet. Andrews has done it before, so he's the next best bet. And it's that simple. And the fact that there are so many of us calling so many sleepers out there that it feels like you can guess them coming, really the value of that position is two players a year. Just pay, like that's it. And as far as the down the way values, it's players playing in their first 2 years who have done something. Albert O, for example, has had more of a share of that offense behind Noah Fant than I think we should have expected. So that's interesting. He's probably still going to be more Dan Arnold than anything else, but I think it's interesting. And Kyle Pitts doing this in his rookie year, that's why it's good. Very few will do this. Yeah. Evan Ingram, believe it or not, still like I had to call him. It's Mike Gesicki's been a top 12 tight end for 2 years. Like that's most of them. Trying to catch the Delaney Walkers will drive you nuts. Because I don't even think we saw him coming. Not realistically.
Right.
You know? Right. Like running back turn to, although there are a few things like people point out positional converts later in a career tend to have an effect. I think Logan Thomas switched from quarterback to tight end last year. The year before and finally caught up. And same thing with Darren Waller. The further down a career's player you get, the less likely they are to break out. But there are some positional converts who just haven't been trying for that position before. And that's where a lot of the surprises came from. I think Gary Barnidge as well. I think he converted.
So you're saying stash Tyree Jackson and
I guess.
What the hell is his name? Hakeem Butler.
I thought you were going to say Tim Tebow there. No. Because again, most fail. Like I think Austin Seferian-Jenkins, that was his big thing. He was but he converted at the draft, and then we saw nothing after nothing after nothing. Like if you don't see something significant after 3 years at most positions, it's probably not going to happen. But then again, you do get the Robert Woods of the world. He's someone who switched teams, so there are those outliers. But it's normally because of some sort of event they switch teams. But then every time anyone switches teams, everyone's like, Robert Woods, like probably not. Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. Again, just assume all these players are amazing, and there is virtually no difference, and therefore you just take the ones that distance themselves anyway. I mean, that's how I screwed up with Deontay Johnson. Like I was so obsessed with the fact Juju Smith-Schuster has done it. I kept forgetting Deontay Johnson just did it. Right. Like that doesn't, just because Juju did it first doesn't mean Deontay didn't do it last year. So yeah.
And that should maybe be a little bit more compelling, honestly, the fact that Deontay Johnson did it more recently.
So. Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that. I think just because it just happened doesn't mean it's more like, again, but anyway, I'm not rehashing that one. As for Dan Arnold, you've got him on your roster now. And yeah, I think he's a decent bet. I think he's...
There's upside, for sure.
I'm not telling you, drop him now. That was a mistake, because they are a decent bet. I just think trading away a productive tight end for someone that you think might be a productive tight end... Yeah. But you did get the second, and like John said, that's probably the value of the trade, because neither of them are going to be Kelsey or Waller, so who cares? Is that basically what you were saying?
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have one of those two guys, you're really just kind of living the same life that everybody else is. So, try and find somebody relatively safe who you can just throw in there. Try and find a backup with, a significant amount of upside. That's Dan Arnold. So, I mean, we just need somebody for you who's going to be,
maybe Dalton Schultz or Evan Ingram, like we mentioned earlier. I think,
safe, but boring is, boring is fine at tight end. Just find somebody who's relatively safe, who you just throw in there until, you see a flash from Dan Arnold, and then you make that switch.
I think I remember learning those early tight end lessons, and it was looking at Jason Witten's history. Like early in his career, he's a tight end 5, he's a tight end 1, and then he's just a perpetual top 12 tight end. And I was like, but Jason Witten sucks.
It's so boring.
It's like, what's going on? And it's like, top 12 tight ends literally don't matter. And that's who most of them are. And so the ones that stand out, like Kittle and Andrews, I always have a little more value on. But then remembering who basically get to the last 2 years, it's been Waller and Kelsey. So Kelsey's the best bet, Waller's the second best bet, and then you tear it down to Kittle and Andrews, because they did it at least once. And then you tear it again for those who've been top 12, but they're not probably going to elevate up there. RotoViz says that tight ends break out by their second year. I've always found that a little optimistic, I like to give him the 3 years, but
yeah,
that's when most break out.
Kittle broke out in his second year, and so that just kind of became the new standard. So
I think so. I think you can give him 3 because
yeah.
But if they're not doing it by 3, then it's going to be in year 5. So, like, you're locking yourself into waiting 5 years, or just give up, and maybe check him out what he's up to before that 5th season starts.
Yeah.
And yeah, to be real clear, I'm shitting on tight ends here, but not your trade. It's fine. The second is probably more than enough for a startable tight end. But I think most people would snap accept that trade getting got it.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Yeah. And he's got Dalton Schultz already. So, where we were saying, get a safe guy, get a high upside guy. You had Schultz relatively safe. I don't know that Goddard necessarily has any upside that hasn't been unlocked. So,
we've seen him in the top 5.
Yeah.
We've seen him do that. I mean, and this year I'd have to pull it back up here, but Goddard's like, right, he's tight end 8. Again, he's a top 12 tight end. He's going to have some good weeks, some bad weeks. He's in the streamable category.
Yeah.
And that's it. You've got Kelsey, Waller, and streamable.
But it's really just, I mean, you think about Goddard and Dalton Schultz. Those are your 2 options every week. Like, what's the scenario where you're benching Dalton Schultz for Dallas Goedert? I don't know that Dallas Goedert is going to get to a point where he's just kind of must start over Dalton Schultz. And so, I don't mind that trade at all for that reason. I could see it with Dan Arnold. I could see. I wouldn't say that it's particularly likely. Playing the probabilities, the most likely scenario is Dan Arnold just takes up a roster spot for you. But he has more upside than Dallas Goedert. I do believe that.
I think Goddard it's what I said before. Like, Goddard's going to be worth what he's worth this offseason. I think Schultz and everyone else drop off. Like Tonyan did. Like, no one wants him in the offseason. Was Goddard still high drafted on a team that's slightly better now by the look of it with Jalen Hurts under center? Like, I think everyone's fine with him being a good tight end. Schultz and everyone else, people will be like, oh, yeah, but the season's over now. It doesn't matter.
Right.
John Sharkey, Shark's value. Again, this is one of those ones where I wanted to trade him away every time he gets value, and so far it's always worked out. If he has value, trade for it. He's just one of those wide receivers. Like, he has a top 24 season in the same way that Mike Davis has a top 12 running back season. It's the worst top 24 points per game season, like, in forever. Like, I think he's a good NFL player. I don't think he's ever going to bloom into what we want him to be in for fantasy, and I think we're well past the stage we should have seen that by now. So if he has value, I'm trading for it. I would trade him away just straight up for a first. Like, I would do that gladly.
Really?
I don't know anyone's trading him away for that other than me, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably expect more if you're trading him away, is what you're saying. But I'd give him away for first.
I think I would too. I mean, if I knew, and that's the tough part. This is the tough part, is we're still at a point in the season where it's really hard to project draft picks, where are they going to land? Like, right. Don't play that game, people love to do it. I get tagged in trade polls all the time, and it says
early, late.
Yeah. Early first, likely early first, whatever. It's like, man, you have no way of knowing that at this point in the season. But DJ Chark doesn't help make that a later pick. So that does help a little bit, because I think for me, in an average draft class, I would take probably like a mid first for DJ Chark. And feel like I could pretty easily replace him.
I wouldn't even question it. I would be like, yeah, sure. And then when it didn't work out, I'd be like, well, I had no way of knowing that it would be.
We can do that. Senior writers get to do that. The rest of us have to actually.
During DJ Chark's top 24 year a couple years ago, I mean, he's a good player. He had a great year a couple years ago, not to diminish it. And he's got a good quarterback and hope that team can find better management. You got to hope. So there's reasons people could say are positive. I just genuinely don't think it's going to happen. Based on career arcs, based on what DJ Chark has done before, and it doesn't look like the type of player it will happen for fantasy. That's also a fantasy take, not an NFL take. He's a good player.
It was one of two things that actually worked for that team. As dysfunctional as it was, the two things that were working, it was James Robinson and it was Trevor Lawrence to DJ Chark.
It was Trevor Lawrence to Marvin Jones, and that's the other thing. Like, if you want more narrative to spill on top of it, like DJ Chark has struggled to be fantasy good in forever, apart from that one discount top 24 season. And this year, Marvin Jones, who's had better top 24 seasons than him before, so that's how I measure who's a better or worse player. What have you done before, volume-wise and production-wise? He walked in and just took his lunch. Like, he took the Visca Chenault's lunch too. Like, 27,000-year-old Marvin Jones just was like, oh yeah, I'm better than all of these guys. If you need another narrative to spill on top of it, like, any decent player that they found on the waiver wire could take over these jobs over them, apparently. Like, and I know Marvin Jones has been hurt and DJ Chark has been hurt, but through the first 4 games, they were both on the field for about the same snap share. They had about the same target share, and Marvin Jones was the guy. Marvin Jones and DJ Chark shared the field week 1, week 2, and week 3, and it was Marvin Jones every time. And same with Chenault. Like, both of them needed Marvin Jones to be gone in order to co-opt enough volume. If you need, and that's just narrative. I mean, you've got 3 games there with individual game scripts and a new quarterback and a coach doing stuff that he shouldn't be doing instead of planning games. So that doesn't mean DJ Chark is any worse. But if you wanted another narrative to spill on top of it, I mean, we've never seen it. And I think we're past the point where we keep hoping for that upside, especially if he still carries first round value. But I'm going on too long. I'm having too much fun watching John say, So I didn't mean to get into the weeds on that one too much.
I felt like I had to stop saying yeah to everything. I thought that you were going to start to think that I actually agree with you on all this stuff. It does
trigger me when I think you're agreeing with me. Like, I get strongly upset. I'm like, whoa, this isn't going well for me. Don't like it. I think that's all my notes for the show. I don't think I noticed anything else last week that might have longer term dynasty impact. Yourself?
No, not really.
I have a few questions. I guess I could throw your way just because I like other perspectives. Like Jalen Hurts. Just that with a question mark. Like,
was just gonna bring him up.
Okay.
That was the one when I was like, hey, do I bring this up or do I let him wrap up the show? Jalen Hurts is the guy that I'm curious about too. And I mean, he's been great. He's been consistently. I mean, all 4 weeks he was a top 12 quarterback, right? I would say it was him and Mahomes. Those are
I think, he's 28, 21, 20, and 28 points the last 4 weeks. I would say I was a little lower than truthers or the highest of the high on him, but I would also say he's exceeded my expectations every week.
Sure.
That's where I'm at. Like, I'm impressed. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think him and Devontae Smith literally dragging a team that's been struggling the last 2 years just up all by themselves, apparently. Like, I'm impressed. I mean, they seem to have had an effect on Jalen Reagor. That's how good they are. Like, they're breathing life into my Jalen Reagor love. And as far as I can tell, it's Hurts and Devontae Smith really helping out that team. I would say they're not rushing hardly at all. Like, at some point, they're going to run the ball.
Yeah.
So I don't know what effect that has.
Right. It also, I mean, at least what our understanding of it was in the preseason, in training camp, that Joe Flacco was a legitimate threat to Jalen Hurts. Now you also have Gardner Minshew there. And I think that that's kind of scaring a lot of people away, myself included. I was one of those people who went into it saying, Jalen Hurts, when I watch Jalen Hurts play, I think that the passing is underrated. We love the rushing upside. That's what we always look for from fantasy quarterbacks. He's got that. So there was a lot there to really like about Jalen Hurts. I just couldn't quite get past that. The fact that it really seemed like they were pretty interested in replacing him. There was Flacco, there was Gardner Minshew. At one point, they were right on the verge of trading for Watson.
I really think Minshew looked like a Jaguars GM move. Like, we got to stop this guy not starting Trevor Lawrence. Like, that was honestly how it felt to me. Yeah. We'll just trade him away.
This should not be a quarterback competition.
Right?
So here's how we call this thing. Yeah. I think that's probably true. But the fact that he lands with the Eagles still just kind of, it just makes me nervous, because I know that Jalen Hurts is not a conventional NFL quarterback. I mean, whatever that means at this point. But
there's no one type at this point. But yeah,
there shouldn't be. I mean, Lamar Jackson is as safe as anyone. So
no, I think I play quarterback similar to the way I play tight end. Like, there are two at the top. Specifically two now. There's Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray, who spend literally the 101 on them in Superflex. That makes sense to me. And then there's a tier 2 of good, better than most prospects. And I think Jalen Hurts is in there now. You've got him. You've got Aaron Rodgers, who we always know can come back to form. Who are Dak Prescott. Like, these are great players. I think I'd put Jalen.
You're putting Hurts in with. You'd
Dak
lump him
Prescott
in with Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert.
I see Josh Allen is a weird one for me. He kind of floats. Like, I don't believe it, but he probably belongs in that tier with Mahomes and Hurts. But since I would never draft it, I can't honestly say that. And then you've got, so we'll say he's between them. But as much confidence that he's good that I do in Dak Prescott, and that's impressive after 4 games, I would say.
That's a huge statement. I
take it back.
yeah, that might be a little too provocative.
Fair enough.
For this time of night. But what about I mean, Joe Burrow or Jalen Hurts? Like, it sounds like they're at least in the same conversation.
Yeah,
you
Joe
might
Burrow's
even take
in there. He's got youth. I think Joe Burrow's showing it. I mean, where'd you put Herbert? Slightly above them as well. I don't like quarterback. Herbert's slightly above as well. No, I would say Herbert's in that tier. Joe Burrow, I honestly have a little bit lower. He might be better or even the same in terms of what he can do for the team, but I don't think he has the same fantasy upside as Justin Herbert or even Jalen Hurts. Herbert, because he's just apparently just a much more efficient passer than most in a Patrick Mahomes-like way, maybe. Yeah. I'm not up there yet, but I think it's really interesting what he's able to do. And Hurts, because it's that running back mold. He's a better passer than most rushing quarterbacks, and he's a really good rusher.
Yes.
So I think he has a different access to that different upside, and that puts him in the Herbert tier for me.
Huh. Okay.
I mean, if it doesn't work out, then you're screwed. But I mean, you're getting. If I'm going for upside, I think you kind of have to make swings like that sometimes.
Are there any of the rookie quarterbacks who you would prefer to Jalen Hurts?
Who are the rookie? No,
including Trevor Lawrence.
Not now. No.
Yeah.
I didn't have strong feelings on quarterbacks, except for Fields, because he was pushed down, and I really didn't understand why he was pushed down.
Yeah.
And Fields is kind of the Jalen Hurts potential prospect this year. But no, I tend to be low on rookie quarterbacks anyway, because I draft the thing about this tier is, like, I will get the first tier if I have an early pick in a Superflex draft. I never get anyone in this tier.
No,
that's why I can put him safely there, because I will fade quarterback until that. I'm good.
You might get Jalen Hurts though. I would not be surprised.
If he fell below there, like Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, I will draft in the first round. I wouldn't draft any other quarterback in the first 2 rounds of a startup Superflex, and that's where most of these guys are going. So Hurts would fall below that.
I would honestly be shocked. Like, if you were at 103, so you missed on both Mahomes and Kyler Murray, I would be shocked if Jalen Hurts was not there for you at 303.
Yeah, I'm not drafting a quarterback in the second round, but if he fell below that, I'd be really excited to get him. Like, yeah,
you wouldn't take him in the third pick of the third round?
Probably not. I try to overdraft that next stack twice. I'm not saying it's working out well for me, but like if I get Murray and like they're fine. I'll spend first 2-round draft capital on a quarterback for that. But outside of that, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to be down lower than this, right? So I get a shot at a top 12 running back or a top 12 wide receiver twice, and then I can draft an Aaron Rodgers. That tends to be broadly how my Superflex drafts, how I plan them out. Whether it works out that way is, depending on how that draft goes.
Am I in that draft?
Yeah. I overdrafted. The last Superflex draft I did was for our DLF Pods League, and I overdrafted quarterbacks more than I usually do because I got Aaron Rodgers on that comeback because I knew you were there. I was like, no, he's not going to leave me anything if I don't draft a quarterback now. It's just
certainly not leaving you Aaron Rodgers.
So, yeah, that can happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, you play each draft, but generally, and the way what I'm thinking about is in terms, I do Superflex ranks, and so do you for DLF, and that's kind of the way I tier it. You have this you draft these quarterbacks, and then I'm going to go running back and wide receiver top 12, and then I'll come back to quarterbacks after that. And it tends to be how I tier it as well.
Yeah. It's always tough with the rankings, and we talked about that off air too. Rankings are so it's so tough to kind of signal to the consumer of your rankings what exactly you're kind of proposing, and to me that's the number one flaw with it, because I still I do I obviously I rank quarterbacks just kind of generally pretty high, but I've got running backs and wide receivers, up above some of the quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford, for instance, guys like that. And even though, my advice in real life would be, if you're at the 9th pick and if Matthew Stafford is my 9th quarterback, but I still have those, those wide receivers and those running backs ahead of him, I'm still taking Matthew Stafford just because you're about to miss out on the quarterbacks completely if you don't do it here.
That draft, by the way, I took Christian McCaffrey at the 4th overall pick, and you were between me and my next pick, and you took Murray and Wilson and traded up for Cam Akers. Whatever.
Oh, that hurt. Yeah.
But then my draft is Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Rodgers, Michael Thomas. I was not off to a good start. I felt great about it. I felt like really happy about the way that started. But my first 4 picks have been already on the bench. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. My next pick.
Did anyone have a good draft there?
Tua Tagovailoa was my next pick.
So
to the
you've
bench,
got,
my man.
So legitimately, your best player, your top drafted healthy player right now is probably James Robinson, right?
Who was my 5th round pick, and after I broke the. Like, that was just before the draft. And so when I broke this draft down, it was after the draft. And that was the pick I called out as a bad pick. I was like, I took James Robinson. And he's the only one out of my top 5 picks who's actually starting for me this week.
That ended up being your best pick. And we know absolutely nothing.
Oh, God, that went rough. I don't know how I think I'm 2-2 in this. And I really tried to go all in for this year, but no one trade with me. This is a league that someone was like, "Nah, I'm just not trading." And I think I'm 2-2. I'm 2-2. You guys suck too. I don't have my first 5 picks. You can't beat me.
And you beat
more than
me
50% of the time. Yeah.
I think that you had some of those players when you did it.
I probably
think
did.
It was week 2.
Let's say that I did.
Yes,
my season sucks. Did they put Ian Thomas on IR? Logan Thomas. Maybe.
Oh yeah, Logan Thomas is on IR.
Good Lord, he's my tight end. So...
Which we talked about, like we just kind of orbited around Terry McLaurin when we were talking about wide receivers. We hit on pretty much every wide receiver in that range except him. Like, he's the one name that didn't come up. And Like, to me, I don't know that I would necessarily even rank DJ Moore ahead of Terry McLaurin at this point, much less have him jump over McLaurin into the top 5.
They're different type of players.
Totally.
That's the thing. I felt I was high on Terry McLaurin, putting him in the top 12 this offseason, and then I found out everyone had him in the top 12. So, I don't know how to feel about that. I would say I like more than Terry McLaurin right now. Just as a player. Both have terrible quarterback situations, but Terry McLaurin doesn't care, and DJ Moore seems to be affected by it. So it's fair to say that Terry McLaurin is better. I just like those yards producers rather than Terry. I don't know.
Taylor,
what is it about them? It's Terry McLaurin's down the field and DJ Moore's close to the line of scrimmage. I just like those lower A guys sometimes. They just seem like better volume bets, if you know what I mean. Slot players.
Yeah. I mean, Taylor Heineke legitimately has the worst arm of any starting quarterback in the league.
Yeah, it's fair to say that Terry McLaurin is doing this all by himself. Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
I love
Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I love Taylor Heineke. I love, the swag. I love you still get the rushing upside, but yeah, weakest arm in the league. And that's in a league that has 42-year-old, 43-year-old Tom Brady still throwing the ball deep down the field. And he does it better than Heineke.
Just fine. Ben Roethlisberger. Are you telling me?
Yes.
Wow.
I think right now Roethlisberger still has a stronger arm than Heineke.
Could I beat him in an arm wrestle? Is that what you're saying? Is it that bad?
Oh, probably.
Bear in mind, I struggle against the wind sometimes. Like, so
if you can pick the direction, he can flip. You pick which goal line you get to defend. Yeah, I think you're good. Go with the
wind. Yeah. Anyone else anything else you think's Dynasty relevant? I forgot Terry McLaurin is another one in that top 12 conversation that's probably going to get pushed down a little bit by this youthful group of, amazing players with Lamb, Jefferson, and Metcalf at the top. There are just so many good players behind them that are probably are somewhat more likely to produce, are definitely in the same range in terms of volume and outlook, and yet they're going to be ranked lower in Dynasty. Like, it's going to be like everyone's going to want to trade back. Everyone's going to want to trade back. Like, yeah, I'll take Tyreek Hill around later. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway. Fields is a buy right now. Yeah, I think we both kind of landed right there. We said we greenlit a Mac Jones and a second round pick for Fields. Like, I bet on that upside. Like, that's a guy who keeps getting slammed. One by senseless talk around the draft about how he's not really a quarterback or something stupid. And now, like, Matt Nagy not wanting to start him. None of that's got anything to do with how good he was in college and how good he could be in the NFL. Just sometimes you just fade the conversation around him. Hey, we made someone laugh. I'll take that.
Nice.
All right. Anything else at all?
Man, I think that's all I've got.
We have no outro for this show. Lately, Dynasty Outhouse has just been going like, look over there. And then we cut it out where everyone's distracted. And still the only outro I have is, well, I guess we're done here. So I guess we're done here. I really appreciate you checking it out. If you did, I come on every Wednesday. Hopefully John can come back and talk with us again, but he's a very busy man. And if not, Dynasty Outhouse, and if not, someone else from the DLF crew to try and keep me on track and actually remember players like Terry McLaurin. Take it easy, Corey. I really appreciate it. So yeah, thanks for checking us out, and we'll see you again 9:30 next Wednesday. I'm talking not at all to Vamp while I look for, there it is. All right. Appreciate it. See you next week.